The newly released Jehovah's Witness Elders Manual, Shepherd the Flock of God of 2025, brazenly functions as a legal shield for the organization, distancing its leadership from responsibility for serious harms while shifting blame and liability onto local elders and the general membership. Nowhere is the self-preserving agenda more evident than in its approach to legal matters and handling of CSA and material that harms children. Once again, the Jehovah's Witness leadership has managed to produce a document that pretends to be about spiritual guidance, while in reality, reading like a legal escape hatch. The new Shepherd the Flock Elders Manual is less a pastoral guidebook and more a carefully worded liability shield for the men at the top. At first glance, it looks innocent enough. Pages of instructions on meetings, ministry, and shepherding calls. But read closely, and a pattern emerges. The organization has essentially offloaded every risk, legal, moral, and ethical, onto local elders and ordinary publishers, while headquarters keeps its hands clean. The manual repeatedly instructs local elders that after receiving reports of misconduct or criminal activity, 2 elders should immediately call the service department or the legal department. By directing all such cases to be referred to headquarters, the organization cultivates plausible deniability. Frontline elders are given no real authority, yet they are the ones left dealing with victims, families, legal authorities, and all associated risk. This is reinforced by pages or passages making clear that legal and financial responsibilities the congregation has are handled in a timely manner, but only as judged by the organization itself, not local law or justice standards. The elders are repeatedly reminded that they should contact the service department for further direction and are reminded that they do not speak for the organization, just for their local body. In any material or witness situation, the elders must reason on Bible principles, not legal norms, rehearsing a line that absolves the organization from being seen as devising or enforcing policy, making each elder by design the public scapegoat. The manual opens with a telling disclaimer. It says this: the shepherd is copyrighted and confidential. If you are no longer serving as an elder, return any printed copies to the Congregation Service Committee to be destroyed. Any electronic copies should be deleted. Nothing says accountability like mandating the destruction of evidence. That one line reveals the entire mechanics of watchtower governance: secrecy, control, and plausible deniability. This book is a technology of risk management disguised in scripture. It reframes criminal matters as spiritual and institutionalizes gag orders and assigns liability downward to elders functioning as unpaid middle management and to congregations treated like franchisees renting property from the corporate mothership. It is in these pages that the policy scaffolding for cover-ups of child abuse, the laundering of disputes over kingdom or property, and the minimization of pornography scandals can be plainly read. The manual constantly emphasizes that elders, not the organization, own implementation. In harmony with these principles, elders should exercise discernment and caution in legal matters. For example, in their role as elders, they should not offer legal advice to publishers on personal legal questions or enforce legal orders between private parties. The congregation does not sponsor or organize social events at the Kingdom Hall or elsewhere. Additionally, the congregation does not get involved in charitable donation programs that would make the congregation an active participant in the program or a promoter of commercial activity, or give the impression that publishers do volunteer service on behalf of the organization. No one should involve the congregation in such programs. That sounds benign until you realize its subtext. The central watchtower entity is never legally entangled. Elders are reminded again and again that they make the decisions locally, but always in harmony with the direction from higher up. Translation: Warwick hands down the policies, opaque enough to deflect liability, while local elders implement them and absorb the legal blowback if things go wrong. And the contradiction is breathtaking. Obey the faithful slave without question, but you hold the bag when courts come calling. It is in chapter 9 that the apparatus of denial reveals itself in chilling clarity. Child abuse is a crime. The elders' handling of an allegation of child abuse is not intended to replace the secular authorities' handling of the matter. Elders comply with child abuse reporting laws and will not shield anyone guilty of such crimes from the secular authorities. Therefore, the victim, her parents, or anyone else who reports such an allegation to the elders should be clearly informed that they are free to report the matter to the secular authorities. Elders do not criticize anyone who chooses to make such a report. This is corporate theater. The line looks like compliance, but buried in the same chapter are escape hatches that neuter it. Elders must immediately call the service department before doing virtually anything. By centralizing first response in New York headquarters rather than the police, the priority is clear: contain reputational damage, do not protect the victims. While claiming to protect victims, the manual still clings to the notorious two-witness rule when forming committees for serious wrongdoing. Unless there are two eyewitnesses or a confession, elders may hesitate to take decisive action. This is a standard that no criminal justice system on earth would impose on child victims. It says, eyewitnesses, there must be 2 or 3 eyewitnesses to the wrongdoing. Suspicions and hearsay are not sufficient evidence. A committee should not be formed if there is only one eyewitness. So, if a child reports abuse without corroboration, no committee, no record, the crime vanishes. Victims are re-traumatized. Perpetrators are shielded. But the corporate office remains insulated, claiming elders were following scriptural procedure. And then there's the line about victims not being required to present allegations in front of the accused. How generous! How modern! As though this were 1850 and cross-examination in the church basement was still standard practice. The next part had me flabbergasted and dumbfounded. The manual degrades even CP to a matter of serious sin, requiring possible reproof. Viewing CP. However, viewing CP is still a serious violation of Jehovah's standards. Depending on the frequency and the extent of the wrongdoing, the matter could be handled by means of strong counsel. In some cases, it will be necessary to form a committee. If the elders determine that it is necessary to form a committee, they should contact the service department. Read that again. Possessing images of exploited children is not per se criminal within Watchtower rules. It's merely serious. This linguistic minimization tells elders, don't call the police, call the branch. The core priority is control of the narrative, not child safety. The manual glowingly assures, natural ability does not qualify a brother for appointment. The elders should help brothers to reach out and qualify to be ministerial servants and elders. The circuit overseer relies on the good judgment and spiritual discernment of the elders when considering whether to appoint a brother as a ministerial servant or an elder. And here we must note the legal positioning. When predators slip through the cracks, it isn't headquarters. It's the good judgment of unpaid, untrained elders at fault. They become sacrificial lambs for corporate negligence. And if there's one issue revealing the organization's corporate core, it's chapter 13 on kingdom walls. A kingdom wall is dedicated to the worship of Jehovah. All congregations using the kingdom wall have the responsibility to clean, repair, and maintain it, even if a congregation holds the legal documents entitled to the kingdom wall. It does not own it. Here the corporate shell game emerges. Elders and congregants fundraise, donate labor, and maintain property. yet are told the whole belongs to Jehovah, which is a euphemism for legal corporation. In practice, ownership is stripped from members into centralized asset portfolios. It continues by stating this: purchasing, donating, or selling property. No congregation should purchase property or accept property as a donation without approval from the LDC. The branch office will handle the sale of kingdom or property whenever this is deemed necessary. So local members pay for buildings they cannot keep. New York can sell them at will, pocketing proceeds as organizational funds. The manual openly codifies what many of us have repeatedly shown. Kingdom halls are property farms fueling organizational wealth. What we see when it comes to legal matters is don't call police, call Bethel. This is scripted obstruction. The directive is chilly. 2 elders, if possible, should call the legal department immediately. That phrasing reoccurs dozens of times. A child's disclosure? Call Bethel. Lawsuit subpoena? Call Bethel. Media requests? Call Bethel. Not once call the police immediately. Every second wasted calling Bethel is time a perpetrator remains free. Even legal risks get downloaded onto individuals. Site permission and insurance coverage for literature displays. In some public locations, permission may be needed before setting up a literature display. The service overseer or someone else designated by the body of elders should determine what may be legally required, if anything, in the way of permissions, permits, and insurance coverage. If it appears that permission or a permit might be required, 2 elders should contact the legal department for advice. If the legal department advises that permission or a permit is legally required, the following points should be kept in mind. Any application to use a literature display must be filled out in the name of an individual publisher, not in the name of the congregation, any corporation used by the organization, or Jehovah's Witnesses. If a small administrative fee is needed to acquire space in a public area, it is to be paid by the individual publisher, not the congregation. Publishers should carefully review any such applications or related documents to understand what responsibility they are taking on with regard to liability. Publishers who apply to use a literature display do so on their own initiative as part of their personal ministry. Here is the liability firewall in raw form. If sued, it's Sister Smith, not Watchtower. Brilliant from a corporate risk perspective, utterly exploitative from a moral one. What Shepherd the Flock of God 2025 reveals is not a faith community, but a meticulously engineered liability-proof machine. The Shepherd the Flock manual is not a spiritual guide. It's a corporate policy document dressed up in scripture, a strategy to protect the organization first, last, and always. Elders should read it carefully, because when the next scandal breaks, when the next lawsuit lands, when the next victim speaks out, headquarters will issue its familiar statement. Congregation elders are responsible for handling such matters locally. In short, shepherds are deployed to protect wolves, not the sheep.